I'm an artist, a designer, and an educator in that order, I believe. And today I managed to make 100 slides, no less, no more, including some videos and including art design, experiments. And what I plan to do is to make you grab you and smile, more than one if possible, and show you a little bit of my design process, the way I think, and especially the way I look at the world. The world is horribly wrong in the last few decades, maybe, but we can make it look better simply by applying a bit of art and just changing the perspectives. And this is what I try to do as part of my design process and my artistic methodologies. So I'm going to share this huge amount of things. I'm using PowerPoint, so I'm not very familiar with it. I normally use other sources, but because of the internet, it's not very trustable. I'm going to share, I'm going to use PowerPoint. So it might happen that I click the wrong button. Yeah, so bear with me if that happens, please. So let's play this now. Design Provocations. I really enjoy the title of, sorry, does it start properly? Yes. The title of this series, because I think that design is also a discipline that you can use to provoke, and provocations has to be understood in many different ways. So I'm going to start with my education. For the people that don't know me, I studied mechanics many years ago in Spain, in Cadiz, where I was born, because my father was a mechanic. So I followed the route, and I never enjoyed as much, but it helped me very much to become a designer. After that, years after, I studied applied arts in Cadiz Art School, a very, very old school, very classical in many ways. So it was a little bit difficult at some point because I have very refreshing and modern ideas. So I clashed a lot in terms of my outcomes. However, that shaped me a little bit. And then many years after, I really wanted to be a designer because I had the sense that art was not enough for me to express myself due to my pragmatism in some aspects and my understanding of objects and functionality. So I decided to move to London, and I started from the very beginning. I did a foundation course in St. Martin's. After that, I did a BA at Goldsmiths University in multidisciplinary design, which I didn't know what that was, but that also shaped me very much because of my interest in many things. And after that, I had the amazing opportunity to do an MA in the Royal College of Art through a scholarship given by the company Burberry in London. I was really, really lucky, and I have an MA in Information Experience Design, which is a combination of art design and something else that we never understood, but somehow worked. These are some of the companies I have been working for. I spent 10 years, almost 12 years of my life working in engineering. I worked for big companies like Statoil, AGA, Linde. Then once I moved to London, I worked for SAS Trans, it's a charity, for the Barbican Centre for 3 years in public engagement. Furtherfield, it's a very, very good gallery in London. Goldsmiths University, where I studied and I also taught. For Burberry, I did a couple of projects, and in the University of the Arts in the London College of Fashion. But I'm going to talk today about my name because some of you know me as Vicente Esteban, yeah, which is a kind of nice name, sort of. It's not very, very popular, but a lot of people are called Vicente Esteban in Spain. And I remember, this is about 2000 when I bought my first computer, that I decided to have a website to promote my art. So I Googled my name, because this is what you have to do first of all. And I Googled my name and I found this amazing guy called Esteban Vicente. And Esteban Vicente is an incredible artist. He passed away a few years ago in 2001, if I'm not wrong, yes. And he's supposed to be, or he's adopted as an American painter, but he's actually from Galicia, from Spain. and he exiled from the Civil War, went to America. He was massively talented, and he became one of the big figures of Expressionism, American Expressionism, and even founding the School of Los Angeles of Expressionism and Painting. Very relevant, very famous. But somehow he destroyed my online career, because every time I was typing my name, it was flipping to Esteban Vicente. So this was the issue number one. Quite a provocation somehow. Then I decided, okay, I need to find a new name. I really have to find a new name for myself. Then I started to think, how can I call myself? And I remember all the nicknames from that my brothers gave me, or my mates. No one really worked. And then I remember that a very close friend of mine that I met in London 30-something years ago, the first time I went, he couldn't pronounce my name properly. He used to call me Vicente, Vicente. He hated, I hated. And then one day he said, Vinny, I'm gonna call you Vinny. And I like it very much. It's very easy to pronounce, very easy to remember. And I thought, okay, I got my name, but I need a surname now. And then I started to think and watch some films and trying to find inspiration. And this is one of my favorites ever films, Fahrenheit 451, quite relevant in these times. And I watched this, I don't know how many times, more than 20. And I'm in love very much with the protagonist, because he's an anti-hero. And it's a very special film based on Roy Bradbury's book with the same title, Fahrenheit 451, which is the temperature in which paper burns. So Oscar Werner, he was an excellent artist, especially in the theater scene. He was very, very famous in Germany, Austria, etc. And the name of the protagonist in the film is Guy Montag. And I liked it very much, because Montag means Monday, which is the best day of the week for some people. And also because I got German origins, and I thought, why not making a kind of link there? So I adopted myself for Vinny Montag, because it's easy to remember, sounds good, and because there was no one called Vinny Montag online. So job done. And this is what you can find about me if you click in images in Google now. Plenty of information about my work, my websites, etc. So this is my first provocation, or the first provocation that they did to me somehow. And now I'm going to pass on to some drawings that I do. And when I draw, I don't really see, I don't portray what I see. I see something else all the time. Somehow my brain tends to see above of just what is described with a line. Somehow there's something else there that I always find. And let's see if you can see the same. So I guess that you all see a finger. It looks like a finger. I don't know which one could be, but it looks like a finger. A nail, those small wrinkles right near the tip. But is this really a finger, or could this be something else? It is actually the sunset on the beach. At that precise moment in which the sun becomes really orange and really big, and you can see the waves, in slow motion. So this is what I see when I draw. This one is pretty obvious. It's just a squiggle, it's a kind of line. But is this really a squiggle, or is it maybe something else? Maybe. It's the horizon. It's the horizon in a desert, or maybe the savannah in Africa. If you look at it sometimes, depending on the light, you can see just a line at the end. This one is definitely a wheel. I guess that you all see a wheel here. I see a wheel. But if we pay a little bit of attention, maybe we can see, anyhow, sorry, excuse me. Maybe we can see something else. It's actually a chameleon staring at you. Those eyes from ancient times, like a dinosaur. Something similar happens to me with objects. And I'm very much a 3D person. I draw, I painted very much, but I'm much better in 3 dimensions because maybe my experience of making or mechanics or using tools and my passion for materials, I enjoy much more working with objects. And sometimes exactly the same thing happens to me. I see other possibilities. I understand the function of the objects as a form of poetry sometimes, or maybe as new machines or something like that. So I'll show you some examples now. I guess that you all see bicycle horn. But is this just a bicycle horn or is something else? Normally, when you're going to use a bicycle horn, what you have to do is just press the little pump at the bottom, and through the filter, you create this sound of beep, beep, and all that. But what about if you just press that little pump and you create some clouds? And all of a sudden, what we have in our hands is a cloud maker. It'll be wonderful. This one, for example, is obviously a feather. But if this feather, if you look at the feather carefully, it looks like also a horizon of a very mountainous, mountains at the end of the horizon with that kind of mist at the back, possibly from a bird's point of view. When I was little, when I discovered reading, I got really engaged to it. And I was reading a lot, all kind of books. Some from my brother, who's a bit older, one of my brothers, so I was reading a lot of things. And I had lots of imagination. And I always believed that the protagonist, the characters in the book, lived inside. So one day thinking about this idea, I created this piece in which through that peephole, the protagonist can see our world from inside of their world. This is one of the pieces I made when I moved to England for the second time to study in St. Martin's, and won an award for sustainability. But the idea of making this piece was not about that. It was about imagining when you are under the sun in a very hot place, lying down on a hammock. And I was thinking, if you sweat a lot, what could you do to absorb that sweat and keep on sleeping? Perhaps you can use kitchen towels, paper towels to absorb all that, but also to create this structure, which is a bit critical. This is another of my poetic pieces in which many of the things I do, especially my art, they come from storytelling. I am a storyteller, and this is how I've been trained. So the story of this piece is a lady that wakes up one morning, and all of a sudden, from every single finger, a pencil is growing unstoppably. It cannot stop. So she needs to draw all the time in order to keep the fingertips relatively low. And one day she goes out to the streets, crazy, drawing on the walls because she can't stand it anymore. And a carpenter passes by and they both fall in love. And then they move together and the carpenter is sharpening the fingers every morning before he goes to work. And in the meantime, she's inside of the house drawing hearts around the walls until he comes back. Everyone says that Banksy might be, no one knows him, yeah? Everyone thinks that he's a member of a Massive Attack band. No one really knows him. But I imagine that he might be this kind of character that is just a nozzle that goes walking on the streets, making all these graffitis. When I see scissors that are open, I always believe there's an animal behind. And what about if we could have objects, well, more than objects, fruits, organic stuff that you could actually spray the flavor on any kind of surface or maybe on your dishes. And I made this the other day because I was looking, I'm consuming lots of water lately, all the time. And I was looking to the 5-liter bottle and I was thinking how a 30-liter bottle would look like. Maybe something like this. This one is, funny enough, it's quite small, but it's actually a 1 meter long chain. When a little twist makes an artistic manifestation. So this is another methodology that I use a lot, or I try to be alert for, which is when a little a little accident or a little twist helps you create something else or to see something else. So these are a set of dishes that you carry like that when you're going to serve something on the table for dinner or lunch. And one day I was carrying a plate of soup and it was really hot. So I placed another plate under it to be able to carry it and not burn my hands. And I was carrying the spoon in my mouth. And somehow, I don't know how, I dropped the spoon and I broke the plate with the soup. And this is what happened. Then I took the plate, I flipped it over and I placed inside of the soup. And accidentally, I created a river or a small canal. When I was living in London, I lived in a place in New Cross that I enjoy very much. And I had a little garden. And that garden was my escape. That was the place in which I couldn't wait to go after work and just sit there, have a coffee and water the green, water the plants, water the grass. That relaxing moment that, you know, is very special and a lot of people do. But there's nothing more annoying than actually trying to roll back the hose after you have been watering because it's full of water, so it's very difficult. So what we normally do, most of us, is just throw it again into the garden. But that day, this accident happened. And accidentally, I made the shape of a yin-yang. And next to it, there was a pot from a plant and a bowl from someone that had lunch or something, which I carefully placed there inside and created this yin-yang. This photo is in Suzhou. This is from my friend John, excellent photographer. And I saw it in his WeChat and I loved it very much because I found that the contrast was really beautiful of this building in, I think it's somewhere in Times Square, and so geometrical and strong and sharp. And the contrast with all these random clouds, I found it really interesting. So I was looking to this picture in my phone while I was walking, and smartphones are smart for a reason. So somehow it twists the picture horizontally, and then I saw this. And I thought, actually, it's not a building, it's actually an envelope. It's an envelope that travels, air mail. I think most of you might know this lady, Ophelia, especially the British people. This beautiful Pre-Raphaelist painting from John Everett. I went to Shanghai last summer because there was a small exhibition of the Pre-Raphaelist, and Ophelia painting was there. So I couldn't wait to go, and I managed to go there on a Sunday. It was really crowded, full of people. And in fact, this painting is actually very small, smaller than I thought. It's about 60 or 70 by 40. So it was surrounded by a lot of people taking pictures, which I wanted to do too. I also wanted to take a picture of Ophelia, but I found it really difficult among the people. So I lift up my phone and I capture this. I capture someone taking a picture of Ophelia. And all of a sudden I thought, oh, actually, I'm witnessing the double death of Ophelia. One in the painting and the second one in the virtual world. Archetypes. Some of my archetypes are chairs. I think for designers and architects and almost everyone, at some point you have made a chair simply because you needed to sit somewhere. So the chair for me is one of those objects that I adore. And I find quite hard, to be sitting on chairs. I'm a person, I'm quite active, so sitting on a chair on a sofa for too long is not really my style. However, as an object of design, it's an archetype. And it's got potential for everything because chairs are not only for sitting. But I'm going to show you some of the ones I've been making. So you can see me there, very skinny, a few years ago in London in my studio, and I had a commission to build some A-frames, massive A-frames for an exhibition in Featherfield in Finsbury Park. So I got the commission, and I spent 15 days, I think, a couple of weeks building all these A-frames by myself. And you can see in the back of the studio, loads of timber that they bought me for me to do this. And I had lots of leftovers, small offcuts here and there. And I decided after this job to make some chairs with the remaining material. So I made a series of small chairs for kids, all with the timber. And they came out in a very kind of brutalist style because the timber is for construction, very strong, treated for outdoor, and also thick. So I managed to create this set of brutalist style chairs. Funny enough, I sold most of them. You can see the angles of the offcuts, you know, from the different shapes I was using to cut for the A-frames. So some of them came out in a very expressionist, brutalist way. These ones are slightly different, but kind of the story is what counts, really. So this is the lockdown in London in 2020. And so we had to stay for a couple of months indoors. Luckily, we were living in a massive place with a huge garden. And one of our colleagues that was sharing with us, she assembles furniture for IKEA. So she gets lots of, she gets to go to different places, companies, industries, private houses to assemble furniture. And one day she came with a few sacks full of offcuts. Again, the offcuts follow me wherever I go. And she said to me, Vinny, I know that you're going to be really bored in this lockdown, so I thought that you might want to have all these offcuts. So I said, yes, I want them. And I have my tools with me in my shed, and then I started to build all these kind of chairs that I will show you, just without cutting anything, just using the offcuts as they came in the sacks. And the plastic bits that create the seat, which makes the chair look very sinuous and curvy and very comfortable, in fact, they came from the bathroom. This kind of PVC plastic is used to protect the bathrooms from water, to make it very waterproof. And I have some offcuts in the shed that, you know, they were there before we moved in. So this is one of the designs. Then this one came along, which was really comfortable. And somehow they have an elegance in them because of the shape of these curves, you know, these plastics, but they are fully done with upcycled material. Then I started to run out of materials and offcuts. So as you can see in the left one, the offcuts are becoming smaller, smaller, and smaller. I didn't even have enough for the back, for the rest. So I stole one rack for drying clothes from my colleagues. I was so desperate into my creation. And the right-hand side picture is actually a little store made with brackets from IKEA that this lady gave me to actually build some shelves, which never happened to be. It became a store afterwards. And then I fully ran out. I had just a few pieces of plastic and some kind of metal plates. And I ended up making this stool, which was actually pretty comfortable and bouncy. And then I had nothing else but two buckets and a handle, those handles that you put in toilets, you know, for safety. And I created this small kind of outdoor bench. You cannot be sitting there for too long, however, helps. But what about chairs that you cannot sit on? And this is what I wanted to show you today, chairs that you cannot sit on. This is just a week ago, and I was at home and I am trying to have my own workshop, and so I'm outsourcing materials. But yeah, a week ago I didn't have anything. And I was peeling potatoes to make, because if you don't know, I have to say I'm a very good chef. So I was peeling potatoes to make an omelette. And then I thought, what about if I use this to make some chairs? So I started to enjoy very much, making these dirty models, yeah, as we call in design, just using some wire, some little bits of wood and organic matter, potatoes. Then I ran out of potatoes and I found pears. And I made these chairs with some chopsticks. Then I only had some carrots left. I started to make these chairs with carrots and Mikado pieces of wood as legs. And I made this model. And I also made this model. And I made this crazy one too. And then you think, well, what's this for? This is very playful and really good fun. But this is also a starting point to understand shape, to understand stability, to understand color. So in design, this kind of methods are very helpful to start to envision a possible object. I made these ones today because I had another pair left behind and a little bit of a carrot, and I couldn't help it. And I created this kind of brutalist, again, pair chair. Now I'm going to share with you some video work. I have done loads of video, especially when I was in the RCA. I had the opportunity to work together with John Wozencroft, who's the guy who portrayed Joy Division for many years in every single tour. And also he's a filmmaker, writer, and an incredible educator. And we became really close during my studies. And he helped me very much in video to assess me and advise me doing videos. However, the ones I'm going to show today are essentially installations. So this one, I hope I make it work. This one is about a fan. So this is how a fan is able to hold another fan exactly of the right size, but in a different material. And then you question with this installation, which one is the art object? Is the fan, is the print of the fan, or is actually the air in between that holds both together? This one is a video of an installation that I made when I was doing my, the day before I was having my Viva in Goldsmiths. So we were all in the course, all my colleagues, my peers, and myself, we were all really, really stressed out. Because it's a big thing when you have to defend your project after 3 years. So we were quite stressed, and I decided I have to make something for us to release all this energy. We have to do something fun. And I was working, my project was a lot about creating ephemeral architecture using clean film, which I will share on another time. But I had loads of clean film with myself. So I decided to make this. One, 2, 3. Yeah. So that's Tony, and Tony actually got really good marks for his viva afterwards. Oops, sorry, I knew this was going. Okay, this is a bit more serious. This is called Juxtapositions, Refugees and the Parthenon Marbles. So in the RCA, Paul for sure will remember, and Richard too, in the School of Communications in Kensington, in the main building, at the ground floor, there's a space for exhibitions called the Hockney Gallery, because David Hockney studied there. That's where he hung his famous diploma, which is another story that students should know at some point. And they have a replica of the Elgin marbles in that space, hanging in the middle of the wall, quite high. And my colleague, Joshua Davidson and myself decide to do a juxtaposition on these marbles with some refugees that we generated via rendering, because in that precise moment when we were doing this exhibition, it was the biggest influx of Syrian people coming from the war crossing the Mediterranean. So we wanted to highlight the controversy of having, you know, the cradle of the European culture, which is Greece, and the Greece philosophy, and this amazing Parthenon, the statues and sculptures they are hanging, representing what we are. And we wanted to highlight the drama of these refugees, because they were actually crossing from Turkey to mainly Athens. And this is what we did. The work for that project was really interesting, because Joshua managed to make every single animated figure for this video through pictures that we managed to get from the internet and from newspapers. So he portrayed the actual clothes that these refugees were wearing in the pictures, and then he represented them digitally. So it was a very, very strong statement, really beautiful work. And this is Sustrans. Sustrans, I worked for Sustrans for 2 years as an in-house designer. I started working for them through an internship when I was still doing my BA. And after that, they hired me for 2 years on part-time basis, and I enjoyed very much working for them. Sustrans is a really interesting charity. It's about well-being, and especially about cycling. They have designed the National Cycle Network in England. They are quite an old charity. I think they were founded in the 70s. It's a really interesting place, especially because they use lots of social work and public engagement, which is very important. And because I teach this area in design, and many of my projects go into that direction, Sustrans has been a really important place for me. But today I'm going to show only some of the graphic work that we presented to Lambeth Council for a commission that didn't happen for different reasons. But this is the work I did for them to create some new signage for traffic in Lambeth. So I designed some stuff about safety. using this kind of magnifying glass, using the wheel to make sure that you are safe on your bike. Promoting cycling in London, having the skyline that you can carry on the rack of your bike. And then some a bit more humoristic to try to convince the people or to create a dialogue between car drivers and cyclists. Keep calm and cycle, yeah. Don't let the car be in your head all the time. So this one more, I think. This one, keep calm and cycle, yeah. Carry your car, don't let your car carry you. So this is some of the images I designed for Sustrans. And then we are getting near to the end, don't you worry, guys. The power of storytelling. As I said before, for me, stories are really, really important. And I think a world without stories, it becomes too pragmatic and boring. And I come from a place which is very, very old. It's slightly older than Suzhou. It's about 3,000 years old since it was inhabited. It's really beautiful, I have to say. I invite you all to go. This is Cadiz. It's in the last corner of Europe, very, very near to Africa. And it's got amazing weather, I have to say. And this is the cathedral. This is the old town. And the people from Cadiz are storytellers by default because we live in such a small place. It's technically an island. And it's very old. There are legends of all kinds. And we also have carnival. And so stories is something that since really, really the beginning of your life, if you live in Cadiz and you grow in Cadiz, there will be stories that you will know for sure, because it's part of the idiosyncrasy of the city. I'm going to show you the top view of Cadiz. So it's pretty small. It's about 4 kilometers by 2.5, something like that. And as you can see, on the right-hand side, there's a road by the beach, yeah? That really long beach, that is a natural isthmus, which is a road. It's actually a Roman road. And that connects us to the country, to the mainland. And also, in the middle, on the top, you can see a bridge crossing to another piece of land. So we have one bridge, one road, and a new bridge, which is not in this picture. So this is how we are connected to the mainland of Spain. But we are like a boat in the middle of the Atlantic, somehow. I wanted to talk about this. So this is cuttlefish. Yeah, cuttlefish are called chocos in Cadiz and the south of Spain, and I think in Portugal too. And chocos are delicious, I have to say. Sorry for the vegetarians, but I really enjoy this animal. And we have many recipes in Cadiz. This is how you find them in the market. You clean them and you remove the ink. This is the look of the animal. And this is the most typical way to eat them in Cadiz. This is a couple of summers ago. And you fry them, you bread them, fry them, a little bit of salt, lemon, and there you go, delicious. So I was with my partner, Vinny, in this summer, eating and enjoying very much the holidays. And for some reason, I started to think we have to make a story about this chocos thing because, you know, chocos are amazing. We were laughing. And then I went to bed and I kept my brain really busy thinking of what stories could actually happen with this. So this is the beach of Cadiz from the other side. And this is a typical Sunday or Saturday on the beach. Let's just start the story. What if one day the people from Cadiz realize that they are living on top of a cuttlefish? Let's imagine for a moment that Cadiz is actually stuck to a giant cuttlefish. And this is how the story began. And this is how we started to imagine different possibilities, and we built a project out of that. So we told the story to a couple of friends of us that ran a gallery and a residency in their house, Juan and Raluca, really interesting people, very, very good artists. And they have a residency called Kai, CAI, Project and Residency. So we told the story and they told us, please guys, why don't you build something before you leave the holidays and you go back to UK and present it here. So Kimby and I started to go really crazy and imagine the possibilities of this. And we made an introduction of the project in the gallery on a weekend after 3 or 4 days. So we ate lots of chocos. We bought fresh chocos. We went to the beach. We made some small films. We made lots of pictures. And I generated some images about it. So this is the poster to introduce the project that they promoted in Facebook, Instagram, etc. And then we gave a talk in the place. And this is one of the promotional pictures in the house. And it was really good fun. And after the introduction in KAI projects, we decided we have to make this bigger somehow. We want this to be something else. So we thought about creating a proper public engagement project in which we can implicate and bring along people from citizens, artists, or anyone that wanted to participate in the project as an experimental form of art, you know, that it was not just a very egocentric point of view from Kimby and I, we are going to make a project. We wanted to share this. So we designed a brief that we gave to some friends. So this was one of the parts of the brief. The facts, the local government, so the storytelling continues here, yeah? This is chapter 2. The local government is really worried. For over a year, the city has been experiencing tremors on a daily basis. The citizens are scared, calling the police and emergency services every day and night. One day, a tourist cruise gets stuck on an apparently sandbank at Cadiz Bay. Scuba divers are sent to investigate the damage, discovering that the sandbank is made of a familiar organic matter. With the help of the Navy, the whole perimeter of the city is scanned with sonars, realizing that Cadiz is in fact attached to a giant cuttlefish, which seems to be hibernating. So this is a brief given to the artist. And here on the right-hand side is a little graphic that I designed to imagine in graphic terms what was actually happening. So you can see the Cadiz map, you can see the coordinates of Cadiz. And then here on the top, you can see the recent quakes above magnitude 1.0, which is actually real information. In the past 24 hours, 7 days, 30 days, and so on. The sea level to mark where the city is, and then the size of the giant cuttlefish. And on the bottom, the tremor seismography sheet. So this is what we gave to our friends. And we started from, oops, sorry, okay, sorry. And then we also built this video to as part of the brief. So what we were doing was sending this information via online, via email to some people. So we sent the brief, and we also sent this video that we made on the beach of Cadiz before we left as inspiration. those things in the skewers are actually pieces of cuttlefish stuck on them. And we devised a kind of ritualistic kind of ritual on the beach, you know, by the citizens, try to get rid of this nightmare. And we use kind of, not techniques, but inspiration from Hitchcock films in which you don't really see the crime, but the suspense. That's what you really feel. You're seeing these sounds and these very saturated images. And I'm going to now share with you some of the outcomes. The first outcome is this one. This is Mike Gale. He's an excellent artist and musician and singer. He's the founder of a band called Cold Pilgrims, very good friends with Kimby, and he's a very excellent artist. So we approached to him because we wanted to have music, first of all. We wanted to put a soundtrack to this, this project of the Chocos, these stories. So we sent him the brief, and then he came back with this. I think it's a beautiful topic, a beautiful song. Sorry, I just passed that too quickly. Sorry, I saw something in the chat, but I missed it.
You couldn't hear Mike very well, I'm afraid.
You couldn't hear?
No.
Oh, shall I play it again? Was it that bad?
That's fine, baby. It's fine.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Sorry. Apologies for that. So the song, I'm afraid I cannot share the lyrics today, but it's about the three hearts that the Choco has. Cuttlefish have three hearts, and this is what inspired Mike to create this song. And this one is a very close friend of mine. Sorry, apologies. So this one is my very good friend Roberto Igunia. He's a writer, a singer. He's a rock guy. He's a proper rock and roll man. And I also approached to him to have a song from him about the cuttlefish. And this is what he came across. And just before I start, his song is about that the Choco, the cuttlefish, when he's awaking, is because it's the mountain time, and the Choco, the cuttlefish, is awaking to look for love, to look for a cuttlefish female. Amazing, amazing piece of music. And so these were the first two outcomes that came along for this cuttlefish project. But we carried on, and this is my mom, poor thing, because she's part of many of my projects. So what I did, I designed some kind of Photoshop with people on the shock on the cuttlefish, and she always says for my projects with diligence. So this picture, I gave it to a very good friend of mine that just retired and had started to paint. He's getting better, but this is what he made. He made this kind of very naive style paintings, very big size actually, as part of the project. So he made my mom on the cuttlefish, and then he also painted the cuttlefish with the city on top, which they have a kind of charm in that. It's really, really special. Then we also decide, okay, if this is going to be a bigger project, perhaps we have to think about some merchandising and see how that could look like. So we made some mugs with the city and the cuttlefish. We made some cups, babel cups, and these are my godsons wearing the prints that we did on shirts, t-shirts. And then the future of the project, well, we didn't carry on, obviously, because of COVID. So COVID was stopping us very much to, like everyone else, to do our project that involved people and resources and especially engagement. But we continue in touch with Kai projects, and they offer us some possibilities for an exhibition. So one of the formal outcomes that we will work on is the long play album. We want to create a soundtrack for this project with several artists. And this is how we imagine the front cover of this LP at the moment. But also an open call exhibition, an exhibition in which people can participate. So we will curate it through different kind of topics, and invite citizens, artists, almost anyone to create and manifest the outcomes for the project. And we will possibly, or most surely, hold the exhibition in this place, which is called the ECHO, a space for culture, for contemporary culture in Cadiz. It's a museum, really, really gorgeous, really beautiful place. Very old, but it's been refurbished, and it's got very nice spaces. And the guys from Kai Projects, from the residency, will help us to hold the exhibition sooner than later, I hope. So we want to curate it with several topics, and one will be paintings and sculptures from professional and non-professional artists, children drawings generated through workshops, performance art, music concerts, photography, merchandise, food recipes with cuttlefish, and a puppet show at the moment. But the whole idea of this project is actually to create from a story, to be able to design a participatory project in which we are creating culture. We are offering possibilities to imagination, to fantasy, and eventually it will be something that might remain. And we are getting very near to the end, and I'm going to show you my final provocation. As you can see, humor is always part of my work, and this is a little critique to Philip Stark and his famous lemon squeezer. This is my squeezer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vinny. Amazing. What a journey.
Thanks. Thanks very much.
Lovely. So
well done, Vinny. Thank you.
Amazing. So,
wow, great. Thanks.
We've got virtual applause or e-applause, or I don't know what
really? You oh, wow. That is amazing. That is amazing. I made it very personal, but this is how I do things. I'm going to put the lights on. Sorry, because I cannot see anything. Sorry, guys.
Thanks, Vinny. I've got a pile of questions, but I'm going to open it to the floor first. So, Ellen, you've got a question. You're first.
Hello. Absolutely fascinating. You know, once again, another wonderful webinar from your department and your design school. I'm wondering if you have any memories from childhood of kind of, you know, the ontogenesis of your way of looking at the world differently from other children, or yeah, if you could expand on that.
Yes, thank you, Helen. That's a really, really good question, because I was going to mention this at the beginning and I didn't. When I was little, I was not a lonely guy, but I enjoy very much to be on my own because of my fantasies. So sometimes I struggle to work in groups. Where I come from, we developed our childhood on the beach because it's a really safe place, and we didn't have any computers, so the games were all physical, football and things like that. Football is not something that I like, so I spent a lot of time on my own on the beach. And I remember that when I was around 12, or maybe 10, 12, they were redesigning the whole seaside. So there were lots of debris from construction on the beach. And I used to make cities when the shore, or by the shore, when the low tide, I used to build this amazing kind of Mad Max kind of cities. And I used to wait for the shore, so for the tide to come up, destroy them, so I could build another one. So this is actually where I think that made me be an artist and a designer and a lover of architecture, because I enjoy so much my time by creating all these new worlds. And this remains in the way I see, I look at life. Thank you, Helen.
Thanks, Helen. Any other questions? Who's next? I'm sure there are loads of questions. Okay, I'm going to ask my question. Vinny, it's about collecting. You seem to collect things. You know, well, I know you do. I know you collect things that you hoard and you bring into your life. You pick things up and you put them, and you kind of. Do you think that's a process that has helped you, or do you think it creates too many things for you to do? How do you control it?
Okay, I control it through an inventory. Since I moved to London, I have been collecting less, but I am a hoarder by default. And in my flat in Cadiz, I have boxes and boxes and boxes full of things that have been grabbing from the beach or from places. And what I try to do, or what I used to do, is every now and again in the workshop, put everything on the floor and classify them, because I remember every single thing that I have. And they become potential materials for my work, because I use a lot of ensemblage as part of my process of creation. So controlling is difficult. It depends how much space you have. But definitely collecting things because they have potential for becoming something else is really a big, big part of my methodology.
Do you think, and I just follow it up to, do you think it dilutes what you do by having too many things to do at the same time? Because I'm a collector too, and I often think that my collections go too wide and to make any sense of them. I just get absorbed in the collecting. And I'm just wondering how that affects you, because for me, it kind of stops me doing anything, because I want to juggle all of these collections and I want to keep them going and I want to take inspiration from them. But actually, I do less when I've got more. I'm just wondering about how you feel.
Yes, sorry, I didn't reply to that, and I will say it now. It's about hiding them, which is, I guess, what you should do. So hide a little bit and take out only the ones that you're going to use, but don't get rid of them. Don't keep them, because they will be useful at some point. So this is what I try to say with an inventory. So I have my boxes classified with the materials that I have, and I take them out when I really need them, because otherwise you become into a big mess of, you have so many things that you don't know where to start from, isn't it?
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. There's something in the chat here.
Richard?
I have a question. Can you hear me, Vinny?
Very well, yes.
Okay, so we're next door. I don't know if I'm going to ask this in the right way, but so don't be offended if I don't say it correctly. But what I found really quite well, sort of both exciting but also quite amazing, when you when I see you make things and I look at the things that you've made, I think you've got this very amazing sort of intuitive talent, which is you don't see very often, and it's, a lot of people when they're creative, I think most of our colleagues would agree, is that you kind of tend to note down your ideas in some form or shape, either through sketching or writing or some way, and it kind of takes a little bit of courage, really, just to jump straight in with materiality. But even then, when some people do that, they kind of make something and then they sort of think, oh no, that's the wrong idea, and they throw it away, and then they try and make another one, and so on. And what I realized with you was that you seem to sort of almost take absolutely any material and sort of put it together, and instantly there's a kind of character or animated form there that looks quite happy in itself, and it looks quite acceptable. And I'm still, some of the things I've seen today, I'm still thinking, actually, I quite like that, but I'm not quite sure why, because it's just made out of some, carrots and some pears and things. But I think that's a really amazing talent, to be able to do that. And I mean, it's sometimes, but very few times I've managed to make something the first time. But more often than not, I make something and then I'd make it again and again. And I'm never actually quite as happy with it myself. So, but I think it must be, I don't know, I think you must be almost euphoric all the time because you get so much energy from doing it. Can I, is that correct? I mean, can you sort of...
I think you're very correct. And I think I have a little secret. And I think you're right. I look at the things, one thing is because I make a lot. I make a lot of things. I'm very active, so you get more experience. It's like when you are a draftsman, the more that you draw, the easier it becomes. And but something that I do pay attention to when I'm working and making these really fast models, especially in 3D, is proportions.
Yeah.
Proportions. And I think that's the key of something that you find pleasing to the eye. It's because the proportions work, even if the materials are poor, even if the process is really fast. If you have the right proportions, it works. Visually, it's pleasant, and then it's acceptable, and then it becomes good and attractive. And I think I got a little bit of control on that. I really think so. And also very old.
Good.
I'm also very old.
Thanks, Vinny.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good question and comment. Thanks. Very nice compliment.
And Massimo has a follow-up question to that, I believe.
Yes, Paul. And thank you very much, Vinny. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thanks for sharing with us your itinerary, which is really amazing. Although I don't want to kind of open a debate on what we think like art and design share or what they don't, which is a very complex issue to be discussed here. I think that there is some bias that attributes to the artistic process some degree of freedom that maybe design processes don't have. And this could be a bias. And therefore, my question to you is how much you think that the rigor into an artistic process has to be followed. Maybe you have shown mostly the final results of your research, but there was as well a lot of iterations in how to assemble a chair that looks like a very natural, spontaneous act, as Richard was saying, but in fact it is the outcome of many, many tries. So do you think that art and design in this sense have much in common? So they are processed with the same degree of rigor into applying principles and rules, and then to try until the best possible result is achieved?
Very good question. Let's see how I can answer it. Yeah, thank you, Massimo. I think it's quite interesting, especially for students here. I think there are two components. One is if you have a client waiting for results. If you have a client waiting for results, perhaps that can clip your freedom. This is one thing that for me is important. When I work a lot on my own. I work for myself in many cases. And I think that gives me the possibility of trial and error. And the rigor can be a little bit, not irrelevant, but not as important as it should be. Maybe the rigor can be a little bit left on a side and enjoy much more the process itself, because that's where I enjoy. For me, once I finish the outcome, I like them, but I'm just waiting to do another thing, because what I really, really enjoy very much is the making, is the process, is finding the right solution in the right moment. So I believe that if you are working for someone and you have comments to take into account or feedbacks, that can compromise the quality or the final shape or style that you're working on. Does this make sense?
Well, I think it makes. It's interesting that you are combining or associating rigor to constraints. And again, I think it's a very subjective way of looking at an artistic or any design process in which constraints can be, as you say, rules and regulation that forces you into a more kind of controlled process. While on the other way around, if you are setting your own rules and regulation, you can diverge from them, but within your own set of criteria that you define by yourself. So I think that the definition of the perimeter in which you are creating your piece of art or your piece of design, and constraints or let's say influences that come from the outside are relevant aspects of how you undertake a design process. So thank you very much for your feedback.
Thank you, Massimo. Thanks a lot. We don't have any students asking anything because these talks are for them, not for us.
Van's put his camera on. I'm not sure if that means he wants to ask a question or if that's...
Yeah, actually, I would like to dig in a little bit more in the discussion that Massimo sparked about the relationship between art and design. Because to me, it's a very interesting topic. I'm also interested in different things and always trying to cross boundaries between different disciplines. And just in the recent time, you could see a sort of convergence between arts and design. Before, they were considered very separated, very far away disciplines. But just in recent times, you could see that there is this sort of reunion or marrying between these two different domains. And I mean, to me, it's the same thing, like a creative environment. It's just a different tool, but it's the same kind of family, same kind of thing. I was wondering if we could establish a sort of phases of an artistic and design process, where the artistic moment that matches with the research and the even something like the exploration. It's at the beginning of a design phase, and then the design comes later on with the sedimentation of the thought and with the sort of like putting pieces in order and putting pieces in the right spot. So I'm asking, I would like to ask, yeah, this is my question. Do you think that your artistic exploration could come before and then later on could be developed in also some design? I don't want to use the functional design terminology, but just to make it clear. Do you think there is this sort of sequence or order?
As I said before, good question, Ivan. I think the story is what generates, the input to have a creative process to make an idea manifest and be tangible. But then obviously you can have materials as constraints, maybe functionality, maybe other aspects are actually the other 50% that create the design be final. So I think that the freedom of creation should, or in my case, works much better when it's taken in a kind of artistic way, because I feel that freedom that is not stopping me from creating a shape that has to be familiar to someone, has to be perhaps easy to see or understand at a glance. I try to leave all that on aside at the beginning. And then once that first concept comes alive, then the constraints come by default through the materials, through the techniques that you have to employ, through the cost, for example. So those are the other legs. So somehow it's also replying the question from Massimo. The rigor, perhaps, is given by the constraints that you have to accept and undertake in order to produce it. But for me, the beginning is always, a form of art, because I have more freedom to not to make what everyone makes. That for me is important.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. I don't want to sound egocentric by any means. I just want to, give that kind of freedom in the thinking, which I think that we need to have, especially because industrial design is something that requires us to evolve. We are not in the 50s, we are not in the 60s anymore. It's a different kind of paradigm. And I think that art can have room. Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you.
Any question for students? No.
Nobody.
Oh, what a pity.
Vinny, I just ask one final question about sustainability? Because I know underneath your kind of, a lot of your work is this sort of way of living or a lifestyle, which is very much connected to ecosystems and environments and impacts. I know that you're interested in community, and you're interested in reusing and recycling and all of these kinds of things. And one of the things I was just trying to do then, as I was forming this question, I was just trying to scan back to all of the work that you showed in the presentation. And one of the things, I don't know if it's true or not, is that you don't create a lot which hangs around. The stuff that you create becomes images, and the stuff that you create is kind of ephemeral. It doesn't exist anymore. Would that be true, or am I just imagining that? And is that part of a bigger plan?
And then it's very good question, and let's see if I can answer this properly. I'm a sculptor. I studied sculpture, and then I did design. And since I moved to London, I found it very difficult to keep things, to have a storage, to carry your stuff with you. So I'm becoming more and more ephemeral for that reason. Of course, because social engagement is something kind of different. It's much more a human relationship, and but in terms of objects and materiality, I'm very careful because the way I live. But if you come to my flat in Cadiz, you will be crazy, because I have been carving a stone. I have been making sculpture in stone and clay and wood. I have loads of items and things hanging here and there, and recycle stuff from the beach, hundreds of pieces. But because of the constraints of a space, since I moved to London, I started to be much more pragmatical. And I needed to use, of course, the online, the development of the internet. I think that has pushed us all somehow to work differently. I think that is something that has happened in a almost an organic way, that everyone has much more stuff into your hard drive that around you. I think that's actually a reality.
Yeah. It's hard to reflect material, isn't it? It's hard to. Material is very attractive. Stuff is designed to be attractive. So acquiring stuff is really easy to do in this world. It's harder to reject stuff.
Yeah. So for the last few years, I'm quite careful in which objects I make, or and somehow it can look a little bit like art povera. Even Massimo might agree with this. It's kind of povera in a way, because the materials that I use are mundane. First, because I enjoy the mundane, because I belong to the mundane. And secondly, it's because of the cost of something that you might have to leave behind. What about that? That is a big question also. And this applies to design, not only to art, also to design. I can make one of those chairs in a couple of hours with offcuts. So I'm able to give it to you if I have to move on and go somewhere else. If I make something that might take me ages and I am using mahogany, I will question very much what to do with this object, even if I'm not going to sit on it. I have to keep it because of the cost, because of the time dedicated to it. So it's a kind of way of being free, trying to be free in the world, not to carry too much.
Yeah,
right.
Thank you. Yeah, really, really nice. Okay, I think. Massimo, follow-up question.
And I think that I'm so much enjoying this conversation that I would add a small piece to, like Ellen before was asking you if you could remember the way in which you were influencing the early childhood. And I think that your stories and being in the sand, in the beach is super convincing of how much you have been trained by nature. You have been trained by the environment. And I'm wondering, there is also a pedagogical theory that says that space is the third educator. And I'm wondering if you can remember the shift from being so to say, into the wild, into a more structured educational environment, how much this has impacted on your perception of creativity or your own perception of the world around you. If you can say that this, as much as nature, as much as sand and the sun and the wind have kind of pushed you to explore with materiality, if the space at some point has triggered your imagination as well, and in which way, if you can say.
Yes, fully. I always believe since very small. Thank you, Massimo. That this is making me very emotional. All these questions, because when I was studying as a small boy, 10, 12 years old, and so on, school was not that easy for me. Too many structures, too many rules. It was a bit complicated. And I found and I knew that the reality for me was the outdoor. It was that environment of the beach. I knew every single plant on that beach, every single insect, every single piece of, I used to buy books to understand the stones, to guides, to learn from the insects, because I knew that that part of the world was the real one, not the other one. I knew since very young that the other part of the world was constructed by humans. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not real, but it's very different from something more tangible and something which is full of feelings. Because this is what you found, or what I found when I was exposed to the environment in a place like Cadiz, which was very wild, very wild back in the day in terms of nature. It was much more fulfilling because you have more feelings. Everything was emotional when you go there to try to catch fish or try to get some crabs, on the coast, or find a piece of wood that looks like a crocodile. And all of a sudden you add some stuff and it becomes a crocodile. So that environment really shaped me and remains in myself, because I spend much more time there mentally and physically than on the other side of the world. And this is why I became an educator, for this reason. Exactly for this reason.
Thanks, Vinny. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Master. So the next project we will have to do outdoors.
Quick question.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So you became an educator because you want to change the system to be more like project-based learning and ecologically valid, rather than the sit and get lecture style that unfortunately still most institutions practice?
I wanted to incorporate a bit of criticality and understanding the world differently. I think that education in many cases is very biased and very shaped for the economical side of the world, in a capitalist way, or you name it. Is very much shaped by a system that we have to go through and adapt to. And I think that that's something that we at least should have the chance to criticize and question it. I'm not going to change the world, and I don't want to do anything like that. I'm not a revolutionary or something on that kind of way. But I want to have the chance to say, I don't like that, I would like to change it. It's that sense of ownership and control that we all should have. And that must happen from the beginning when you are exposed to education. This is really my feeling in a very honest way, in a very honest way, which is not, I don't think it's a bad thing by any means, We have to consider that the people that we are shaping, they are going to inherit a very complex world, and they need to have some control over it in their decisions, and they should be preparing for that here at the university, especially. So this is mainly the reason. I could be very rich now. I am not.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Very good question, Ellen. Thanks. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ellen. Thanks, everybody. If there are no further questions,
I have one.
Luis Felipe.
I didn't want to keep it. I was thinking about it. Vinny, thank you for the presentation. I just wonder, you as an artist and designer, I was wondering, like, for example, I feel some people assume design and art, again, this dilemma, they are against each other, right? But you as practitioner of both, I would be interested to know your opinion. For example, if students, let's say they study design, they get briefs, really structured, right? They have to fulfill some goal, commercial or whatever type of. My question is, how you think could benefit students, design students, for example, if they also venture into practicing arts of any type, like performing arts, painting? Obviously, I know it's good because of creative thinking. At the end, everything is about creative thinking, right? But I would like to know your opinion, how you think it blends, how a designer could actually become better by practicing at least one of these type of arts.
Good question also, Felipe. I think it's about interpretation. I think it's about interpretation, how to interpret, you know, a brief, for example, because sometimes I think the briefs are very, very clear, very structured. You know, you have to design a water bottle, but you can create a story around this water bottle. And this is why you want to make it different. And I think that you can use artistic methodologies to go beyond what is expected. At least this is where I push a little bit into my personal work. And somehow I also, you know, I don't tell the students to do this, but this is a method that you can try because it might work for you. For me, it works because I think that you have the possibility of thinking of things in other forms and other ways because there's an experience behind. And I think that design sometimes can be slightly rigid, especially when we talk about consumption, when we talk about products that need to have a specific function. And I like functional stuff, don't get me wrong. I like, you know, a good computer or a knife or something that really has to work. But it can incorporate also all the possibilities too that can be brought in through artistic practices. Performance, for example, is an excellent example, Felipe, for people that want to work into social design. Because you need to understand the people. You're going to work with humans. If you know a little bit of performance art, you've got tools to create better and quicker engagement. So this is how our practices can be incorporated and we can benefit from. This is what I truly think.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Hi, Vinny. Thank you very much for your entertaining and provocative lecture. I have a question for you. Would you like to just give us a little bit more insight into your spontaneous pets, which suddenly came to life in DB building and industrial design building?
Right, thank
More
you.
insight.
Thank you for that, because I know that you love yours very much. I have been repairing that dog of yours a few times already. They came along because once I arrived to China and to the BB building, I had a tour around with Gisela, and I was introduced to the guys in the workshops. And we have just finished semester 1, and there was a pile of projects to be chucked away. And I am in love with offcuts. I love offcuts. You have seen in my presentation how many things I do with offcuts, because I really believe in reusing and not recycling. Recycling for me is not really that relevant, but reusing stuff and give them a new life for me is extremely important. And this is how they came along. And also because I have a passion for animals. I'm not an animalistic person as such, you know, I don't have pets, so, but I like animals as part perhaps of my ecosystem in which I was born and brought up, in which animals were surrounding us, you know, maybe not pets, but all kind of insects or sea creatures, or maybe it's because of that. But this is how it came along, through loads of architecture and design projects that were going to be chucked away.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Okay.
Great. I really enjoy it.
I think we're kind of on the edge of something now. I think that really was a provocation. You know, really was a series of provocations, 100 provocations. So thanks ever so much for that, and thanks everybody for joining us today in this series of design provocation lectures. And we welcome you back to the forthcoming lectures in a few weeks' time. So just once again, thanks to Vinny, and thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Thank you everyone for joining me.
Bye-bye.
Screenshot.
Yes. Goodbye.
Screenshot. Screenshot. Screenshot.
Screenshot.
Got one.
Screenshot.
I've got one.
Okay. Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. See you all very soon, guys. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Save your carrots. Make chairs. Bye now. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Ivan.